The heavy steel doors of the Manhatta Vault complex, buried deep beneath the bedrock of New York City, do not creak when they open. They sigh with the pneumatic precision of a machine designed to guard the Empire's secrets. It is February 2nd, 2021. The air inside the subterranean chamber is recycled, cool, and smells faintly of ozone and dust. A junior vault manager is staring at a clipboard, then at the rows of gray, 1,000 down spars stacked on wooden pallets, and then back at the clipboard. The numbers do not reconcile in the way the public believes they should. Outside, on the Reddit forums and the frenzied trading screens of Robinhood, a digital mob is screaming for silver, believing they can break the banking cartel by buying shares of an ETF. They are naive, fighting a war with squirt guns against a nuclear power. But inside the vault, the manager knows the mob has accidentally stumbled upon a terrified truth that the bullion banks have spent 50 years concealing. The registered category, the silver that is actually available for immediate delivery to settle a futures contract, is beginning to bleed. It is not a rapid hemorrhage yet, but a slow, rhythmic dripping, like a pipe bursting behind a finished wall. That day marked the beginning of the Great Hollowing, a structural event that has seen the inventory levels of the COMEX plummet from nearly 150 million ounces of registered silver to barely 30 million today. The citadel of paper price discovery is now a Potemkin village, a beautiful facade propped up by wooden beams, while the termites of industrial demand have eaten the foundation down to the dirt. To understand why the supply is gone, and why it is mathematically impossible for it to return, we must first dismantle the illusion of inventory that the financial media regurgitates. They will point to the eligible category on the COMEX report, a number that sits comfortably in the hundreds of millions, and claim the market is misapplied. This is a semantic trick, a linguistic sleight of hand, worthy of a street magician. Eligible silver is merely metal that meets the purity standards of the exchange, and is stored in a COMEX-approved vault. It is not for sale. It belongs to someone else, a family office in Geneva, a sovereign wealth fund in Singapore, a tech manufacturer in Seoul. It is private property parked in a garage. To assume this silver is available to rescue the market in a crisis is like assuming you can sell the cars parked in a long-term airport lot just because you can see them. The only number that matters is registered, and that number has collapsed by over 70% since the start of the squeeze. We are witnessing the demolition of the market's shock absorber. In architectural terms, the COMEX has removed the load-bearing walls of the silver market to sell the bricks, and now the roof of global price discovery is sagging under the weight of reality. The history of this drainage is not a story of speculation, but of a quiet, relentless industrial war. We must look back to the forgotten crisis of 1919, the Pittman Act era, when the British government, facing a collapse of the rupee and a revolt in India, begged the United States to melt down hundreds of millions of silver dollars to ship across the ocean. It was a bailout of imperial proportions, proving that when confidence in paper fiat wavers, empires bleed silver. But the crisis unfolding today is distinct because the drain is not political, it is chemical. The two engines framework reveals a fatal mismatch. Engine 1, the macroeconomic illusion, keeps the price suppressed through high-frequency paper trading. The bullion banks, acting as the architects of this illusion, trade contracts representing billions of ounces in milliseconds, creating a synthetic supply that convinces the world silver is abundant. This keeps the price low. But this low price triggers Engine 2, the industrial vortex. Because silver is artificially cheap trading, at half its 1980 high, despite 4 decades of inflation, industrialists treat it as a waste product. They use it lavishly. Consider the photovoltaic industry, specifically the transition from P-type PERC cells to N-type TOPCon and heterojunction technologies. This is not boring engineering trivia. It is the mechanism of the shortage. According to the International Energy Agency's latest renewable reports and the deep dive technical papers from the Fraunhofer Institute, these new, more efficient solar cells require between 50 to 100% more silver paste per watt. The market is pricing silver as if we are still using the technology of 2010, ignoring the fact that the physics of electron efficiency demands more metal. In 2023, the solar industry consumed nearly 200 million ounces of silver. That is not just a big number. It is roughly 20% of the total annual mine supply. 10 years ago, that number was 5%. The trajectory is exponential. We are building the energy infrastructure of the 21st century on a mineral foundation that is shrinking, and because the price is suppressed by the paper market, no new mines are coming online to fill the gap. It takes 15 years to permit, build, and ramp up a primary silver mine. If we discovered a massive deposit tomorrow, a new Potosi, it would not produce a single ounce of refined metal until the late 2030s. The supply elasticity is zero. The drainage of the COMEX is further accelerated by a new, silent actor on the global stage, the strategic military In a geopolitical environment defined by the fragmenting of globalization and the rise of kinetic warfare, silver is a strategic metal. It is in the guidance systems of the Tomahawk cruise missile. It is in the contacts of the F-35 fighter jet. It is in the satellite arrays that guide the drones. During World War II, the U.S. government held billions of ounces of silver in strategic reserve. Today, according to the U.S. Geological Survey and the Defense Logistics Agency, that stockpile is effectively zero. The government sold it all to mint coins and suppress prices in the late 20th century. Now, as the drums of war beat louder in Eastern Europe and the South China Sea, nations are realizing they have no inventory of the one metal essential for modern warfare. This has triggered a covert accumulation, a shadow drain where metal leaves the COMEX vaults and disappears into non-reporting government stockpiles in the East. The Shanghai Gold Exchange has been trading silver at a premium of 10 to 12% over the COMEX price for months. This arbitrage is a siren wailing in the night. It signifies that physical metal is migrating from the West, where it is paper traded, to the East, where it is industrially consumed and strategically hoarded. We are now approaching the convergence, the point where the paper leverage breaks. The structure of the COMEX market relies on a specific assumption that the vast majority of traders will never ask for delivery. They are speculators, hedge funds, and algos playing a game of capture the flag with cash settlements. But the game theory changes when the inventory gets this low. As the registered stocks dip below 30 million ounces, we enter a zone of extreme danger. A single large entity, a tech billionaire worried about supply chains, a sovereign wealth fund hedging against the dollar, or a manufacturing consortium could stand for delivery of more silver than exists in the vault. If a whale were to buy contracts representing 35 million ounces and demand the metal, the exchange would be forced to default. They would likely declare force majeure, settling the contracts in cash. But cash is not silver. For a Samsung or a Tesla that needs the metal to produce a product, a cash settlement is useless. You cannot plate a conductor with dollars. This leads to the inevitable bifurcation of price. We will likely see a COMEX price that remains managed and a physical price that uncouples completely. We saw a preview of this in the premiums on American Silver Eagles, which reached 40, 50, even 60% over spot price. This was not a glitch. It was the market screaming that the spot price is a lie. The two engines are colliding. The macro engine is printing money, creating a flight to hard assets, while the industrial engine is devouring the supply. The result is a vacuum. The COMEX is being drained not by a conspiracy, but by the irresistible force of cheap prices, meeting essential utility. The market has been incentivized to consume its own seed corn. We have eaten the stockpiles. The above-ground silver that was mined over centuries has been largely used up in photography, electronics, and landfills, dispersed in quantities too small to recycle economically. Unlike gold, which is hoarded and sits in vaults forever, silver is consumed. It is burned. It is gone. The implications of this shortage extend beyond the price charts and into the realm of geopolitical power. If the West runs out of silver, the Green Revolution stops dead in its tracks. You cannot build solar panels, wind turbines, or EVs without it. The control of physical silver supply chains is becoming as critical as the control of oil pipelines was in the 1970s. China processes the vast majority of the world's rare earths and a significant portion of its silver refining, by allowing the COMEX inventories to drain to the east. Western central planners have committed a strategic blunder of historic proportions. They have sold the family silver to suppress the inflation numbers for a few more years, sacrificing the industrial sovereignty of the future. The registered category is the miner's cannery, and it has stopped singing. In the end, the empty vaults of the COMEX serve as a monument to the hubris of the fiat era. We believed we could financialize nature, that we could tame the periodic table with derivatives and margin debt. The draining of the silver supply is the universe correcting that error. It is a return to the mean that will be violent and unforgiving. When the final ounce of deliverable silver is scraped from the floor of the Manhatta vault, the illusion of infinite liquidity will evaporate. The price will not just rise. It will reset to a level that balances the books of geology. We are looking at a future where silver is no longer a poor man's gold, but a strategic element of survival, priced not by the whims of high-frequency traders but by the desperation of industries that cannot function without it. For the individual observer, this is a call to recognize the difference between price and value. The price of silver is what the screen says. The value of silver is what civilization requires to maintain its complexity. The gap between these two is the greatest investment opportunity of our lifetime, but it is also a warning. The architectural integrity of the global financial system is compromised. The foundation has been sold off, brick by brick, leaving a hollow structure waiting for the first strong wind. That wind is blowing. The supply is gone. It is not coming back. And for those who are still holding paper promises when the music stops, the silence from the empty vault will be deafening. The only thing that remains is the metal itself. Silent, heavy, and undeniably real. Waiting for the moment when the world remembers that you cannot print what must be dug from the earth.